Today is Friday, September 20th, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, it is Frankie Beverly Appreciation Day. Folks all across the country been wearing their white, and so we'll show you some of the social posts of folks who have been celebrating the life and legacy of Frankie Beverly, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. Well, the pro-Trump Georgia Election Board voted to require hand counts of ballots. How stupid is this? Which would delay the certification of the results by weeks, if not months. Yep, we'll talk about what they're trying to do to steal the election in Georgia. But the Georgia Attorney General has already said this is probably illegal. One accused fake elector, Georgia Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, will not be charged in the election subversion case. We'll talk to one of the attorneys who sued the special prosecutor for dragging his feet in this case. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Georgia today talking about reproductive rights after meeting with one of the families who lost a loved one due to the state's abortion ban. Also last night, Vice President Kamala Harris joined Oprah Winfrey in Michigan for a virtual rally. Folks that had hundreds of thousands watching online. They raised $100 million in 24 hours. Martin Luther King III, he's responding to North Carolina gubernatorial candidate Mark Robinson's alleged comments about his father. We'll show you that as well, plus a new campaign ad from the Harris campaign tying Donald Trump to Mark Robinson. Folks, that and more right here. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. On the Black Star Network, let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Hey folks, Vice President Kamala Harris was in Georgia today. Shortly she's going to be at a rally in Madison, Wisconsin. Here is folks already gathered there. We will take that live when it starts. All right, folks, we're about 6 weeks away, 46 days from the November 5th election. Early voting began today in Minnesota and Virginia. Massive lines in Virginia. In fact, some counties, they broke their first day early voting record by 1 p.m. compared to this time in 2020. South Dakota's in-person and absentee ballots became available today. Now, while some states are beginning the election process, in Georgia, well, the MAGA election board is doing some stupidity. They voted to require hand counts of ballots, despite critics saying the new requirement would undoubtedly lead to errors and disrupt the process of certifying the vote in this crucial battleground state. The vote was 3-2, with the three Trump MAGA folks supporting the move and a Democratic and independent GOP appointed board member strongly opposing it. The two who voted against the measure called it an added step that could delay the presidential election results in the battleground state. Now, folks, it's just absolutely crazy. John Furvier, who's the chairman appointed by Governor Brian Kemp on January 5th, 2024. You have Sarah Tridal Ghazal, a member appointed by the Democratic Party on June 1st, 2021. Janice Johnston, appointed by the Republican Party on March 2nd, 2022. Rick Jafar's member appointed by Georgia Senate on January 11th, 2024. Janelle King, of course, Black Republican, appointed by Georgia House Representatives on May 17th, 2024. She is a big-time MAGA person as well. And the crazy thing about this, folks, is that they literally could delay the results to the point where Georgia, their results wouldn't even count. I need you to understand what I just said. The results wouldn't even count. That's how crazy it is in this particular delay. Now, this is a letter that the Georgia Attorney General released. The office said last-minute changes proposed by a Georgia State Election Board are likely illegal and invalid. This right here is a letter from the Georgia Department of Law. It's from Elizabeth Young, Senior Assistant Attorney General. It says this memorandum is in response to the board's request for comments from our office regarding the proposed rules to be considered by the board at a September 20th, 2024 meeting. As an initial matter, this office does not typically engage in a broad review of an agency's proposed rules to ensure the agency's proposed rules are consistent with law. As an administrative board with rulemaking authority, it is the board's obligation to formulate its proposed rules to be consistent with law and conducive to the fair, legal, and orderly conduct of primaries and elections. The board should evaluate the legality of any proposed rule prior to publication and voting. Should the board desire specific legal advice concerning any proposed rule or action, the board should seek such advice in writing addressed to this office. This office cannot search through email correspondence to which it is simply copied to determine whether or not the board has made a passing comment to seek legal advice on any particular topic. In addition, seeking unspecified comment on any proposed rule is unhelpful. In its request for legal advice, the board should specify the matter upon which it seeks legal advice and ask a specific question to be answered through the chair. This is the best manner in which to seek advice and allows this office to answer those questions on which the board needs advice and avoids any misinterpretation of the board's request and allows for an efficient and deliberate response. In the instant matter, in an effort to assist the board, we make this limited exception to our usual practice to offer the following expedited comments upon the rules proposed for, let me pull this up here. If I can, give me 1 second. I want to pull up the second page. Let me pull that. I think this is right here. Well, actually, this is the Georgia Association of Voter Registration Functions. So basically, the Georgia AG's office is saying, y'all, what are y'all doing? This is too close to the election. It's potentially illegal, but this is what you're doing, folks. Not only that, this is in Georgia. In Nebraska, Republicans there want to change their electoral college votes. Let me say it again. We're 4 to 6 days away because they have electoral college votes given out by congressional district. Well, typically, where Omaha is, Democrats typically win that congressional district. They're talking about changing that, which could totally upend the quest of Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz to get to 270 electoral college votes. So you see what's going on here, how Republicans are doing all they can to steal the election. They're doing all they can to help Donald Trump win, even if it means changing rules. We literally are 46 days away, and they're trying to do this. Matt Manning, civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi. We have Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network show out of Detroit. We're joined later by Kelly Bethel, communication strategist out of D.C. Matt, it's clear what they're doing. They want to try to use any mechanism they can to create a situation that favors Donald Trump, because in Georgia, they are still angry that Biden-Harris won in 2020 and Georgia has 2 Democrat U.S. senators.
That's right. And it's kind of a little bit of foreshadowing because I know we're going to talk about another story and probably in a little bit. But yeah, you're exactly right. When I read this, I mean, before your analysis and before I even read the story in preparation, I saw the headline and I'm like, this is, creating a problem to try to solve a non-existent problem. Going to hand counting when you're talking about millions of votes really, to me, seems to be just completely asinine. And I suspect what is happening on the ground is a lot of the rhetoric is rooted around trying to give people who might believe some of this BS that they're spewing, some reason to believe that now if it's going to be hand counted, then it can be trusted more. But when you're talking about this high a number of votes that will be cast, all you're doing is creating the environment wherein there's going to be those inconsistencies and irregularities, and then you'll be able to litigate it on the back end of your own having created the problem. So I think you're right. I think they're afraid of the way Georgia's going to go, and I think that they're going to do everything they can to try to stop, a fair election by creating these circumstances that make it look as though they're ensuring a fair election. It's really, really stupid, and it's another thing that we've talked about on this show, but that is the Republican playbook right now is attacking all parts of the system, not just the elected official, but you're talking about the election boards, the school boards, all the way top down, so that those tentacles get all in through the system and you can control it at every aspect of the process. And that's exactly what you're seeing here with rulemaking, because here's the thing. If the Democrats were talking about changing rules within 60 days of an election, they would be throwing a fit, right? But the reason they're changing these rules is exactly for this purpose, to try to make sure Republicans and Mr. Trump in particular get a win in November.
So this is the rest of the letter. As a general matter, the passage of any rules concerning the conduct of elections are disfavored when implemented as close to an election as the rules on the September 20th agenda. The United States Supreme Court in Purcell v. Gonzalez recognized, quote, that court orders affecting elections, especially conflicting orders, can themselves result in voter confusion and consequent incentive to remain away from the polls. As an election draws closer, that risk will increase. Federal courts have thus generally refrained from enjoining state election laws in the months prior to an election. See Merrill v. Milligan. See also League of Women Voters of Florida versus the Florida Secretary of State. Purcell applies when voting was set to begin in less than 4 months. The board itself has utilized the Purcell principle in defense of certain Senate Bill 202 provisions, but it says, again, thus, the board should also consider how the passage of any rules well within the period where courts have agreed that Purcell applies may affect the application of the principle in the future. And so then it goes on to talk about the role of the board, their statutory requirements, things along those lines, and on and on and on. And then here's the proposed rules. And then, like for instance, this rule seeks to expand the enumerated location where poll watchers may be designated beyond those places identified in the statute. So they want to do that. See what it says. The proposed rule goes beyond the statutorily designated list of places a superintendent may decide to place poll watchers and instead supplants the superintendent's discretion with the board's own. This, too, does not carry into effect a law already passed by the General Assembly, but rather expands upon the statute. The rule, if adopted, would then very likely be subject to legal challenge as invalid. And so they go on and on and on, Michael, explaining all of these different rules. And you see right here, this next rule, this promulgation of the rule would likely, very likely, go beyond the scope of the board's authority and be subject to challenge as invalid. Propose 4. If promulgated, it will similarly likely go beyond the scope of the statute and the board's authority. Propose 5. What does it say right there? Same thing in terms of what the results can be, and more than likely, it is going to be illegal. So what you have here are MAGA Republicans on this board who want to do all they can to help Donald Trump. Here you have the Attorney General's office going, y'all can try that. Probably going to be invalid, 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 but they don't care.
Yeah, Roland, they don't care. This is designed to sow more confusion, to delay the count, the final count in Georgia, to give Donald Trump more time after the election takes place to spread lies and say the election in Georgia was stolen, and to cause more fear on the ground. He'll probably incite some of these MAGA supporters to go protest outside the hall where the votes are taking place. We know that also there have been proposed changes in expanding access for partisan poll watchers. We know that rallying Republican poll watchers is one of the tactics that's involved in some type of voter suppression, where you have people watching the people taking the count. So these are all out of the right-wing Republican playbook. Two critical things that's important for people to understand. You are correct that Republicans are still pissed off that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won Georgia by 11,779 votes in 2020, but also they're pissed that Senator Raphael Warnock defeated Kelly Loeffler. And it's important for people to really understand the Georgia statewide election law, which was championed by
Warnock and not just Warnock and Ossoff. You have two Democratic U.S. senators.
No, I understand that, but what Denmark Groover did in 1963 is why you have the statewide election law, and it was specifically designed to keep African Americans from having statewide elected power. Okay, this is why if neither in the primaries, if no candidate gets at least 50% of the vote, you have to have a runoff.
Right.
Okay?
No, right. But what I'm saying overall is not what Republicans in that state are upset because Biden-Harris won the state, they beat Trump, and Warnock and Ossoff won. So that's what's driving them crazy. That's why they immediately changed their state law. After the 2020 election, they changed the runoff rules as well. In fact, in 2022, the deadline to register, remember in 2020, once the general election was over, you could still register for the runoff. Because I remember, so the deadline to register was like a month before the runoff. The runoff was in January 2020, January 5th, 2021. The deadline was a month before. They then changed the rules. So the deadline for the runoff election actually took place before the general election even took place because they were angry with the surge of people who registered for the runoff in 2020 who didn't vote in the general election. And so that's what you've got going on with,
I understand.
And so these Republicans are just beside themselves, and they have been tweaking the law, changing the law to do everything they can to steal the election. And Steve Bannon said it. He made clear what they were going to do to prepare for 2024 because they did not want a repeat of 2020.
I totally understand that, Roland, but there's another layer to this. There's another context to this. That January 5th special election that you just mentioned was the day before the January 6, 2021 insurrection.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that law, people researched this law from 1963. Denmark Groover was a segregationist Southern Democrat who was in the state legislature. He championed this law that was specifically designed to keep somebody like Senator Raphael Warnock from winning a statewide election.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another layer of the level of passivity that these white supremacists have.
Yeah.
And then when Donald Trump said, he talked about we have to watch, like for this election cycle, he's saying we have to watch Detroit, where I live, Atlanta, Milwaukee, okay, Philadelphia. That's the same thing he said in 2020, targeting areas that have high African-American populations.
Yeah.
So there's a whole racial layer to this.
Oh, of course. Well, of course there's a whole racial layer. I mean, absolutely. But the point here, if you go beyond Georgia, Matt, we're talking about Georgia. We're talking Nebraska. We're talking so many other places. They are trying their best because they have the power to do so to change laws even late in this game in order to ease the path for Donald Trump to win.
Yes, correct. There's not too much you need me to add to that. I think that's exactly right. And I think what you see Republican-led legislatures around the country are doing is changing the rules when it suits them to, continue power. Once they get into power, we're going to change the rules. And that's frankly really something we've talked about on the show. Democrats don't do that. We got to play to kill. We're not playing to kill. Too often we're playing softer than we need to be. Republicans are playing at all levels to win, including changing the rules, particularly within such a short period of time before an election. I mean, I think Michael said it perfectly. This is not only to confuse people, and this is to obviously implement their playbook, but I mean, the idea that within 60 days of an election, you're changing the rules for how it's going to be tabulated is crazy, especially to a means that is less reliable than the means you already have. So that is intended solely to grind things down to a halt and to have the creation of a question about the validity of the results so you can say Mr. Trump won legitimately this time without people getting indicted behind it.
Hold tight 1 second. We come back. We'll talk more about what's going on in this election. As I said, Vice President Kamala Harris, she is going to be holding a rally in Madison, Wisconsin. And so we'll go to that live when it starts. We'll talk about last night's virtual town hall that took place all across the country as well. So lots to discuss. Also, the Teamsters President Emeritus is blasting Teamsters President Sean O'Brien for their failure to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll read that statement for you, folks. And so a whole lot we got to break down. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
He told us who he was.
Should abortion be punished?
There has to be some form of punishment.
Then he showed us.
For 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it. And I'm proud to have done it.
Now Donald Trump wants to go further with plans to restrict birth control, ban abortion nationwide, even monitor women's pregnancies. We know who Donald Trump is. He'll take control. We'll pay the price.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. It should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is a danger to our troops and our democracy. We can't let him lead our country again.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
IVF is a miracle for us because it allowed us to have our family. After having my daughter, I wanted more children, but my embryo transfer was canceled 8 days before the procedure. Donald Trump overturning Roe v. Wade stopped us from growing the family that we wanted. I don't want politicians telling me how or when I can have a baby. We need a president that will protect our rights, and that's Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems.
Oh, she had a big crowd. Oh, the crowd.
This weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. America's ready for a new chapter. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
The overturning of Roe almost killed me. I had a blood clot in my uterus that caused my labor to have to be induced because of the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I wasn't able to get life-saving treatment sooner. I almost died. And that's because of the decision that Donald Trump made.
I was able to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I'm proud to have done it.
The doctors and nurses were afraid that if they treated me in the incorrect way, that they would be prosecuted for that. And that's appalling. Donald Trump says that women should be punished.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
I believe that women should have reproductive freedom to make the choices about their own bodies. 4 more years of Donald Trump means that women's rights will continue to be taken away one by one by one by one. This has to stop because women are dying.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Hey, yo, what's up? This is Mr. Dalvin right here. What's up? This is KC. Sitting here representing the JODECI, that's Jodeci. Right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, some of the fake electors in Georgia are going to be facing prosecution, except one, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. Prosecuting attorney, counsel executive director Pete Scanalakis, who appointed himself the special prosecutor, decided Jones wouldn't be charged in the Trump election subversion case. We told you in May how some black attorneys filed a lawsuit against Scanalakis to force him to perform a non-discretionary duty. Attorney Wayne Kendall joins us from Fayetteville, Georgia, to discuss the decision not to charge Jones. Attorney Kendall, glad to have you here. So, okay, all right, folks, we have an audio issue with Judge Kendall, and so give me a second, and then we're going to actually get him back on. All right, folks, let's do this here. The folks at Vote Vets, they dropped a new ad against Donald Trump. And what you're seeing again, as the ramping up of these ads against Donald Trump take place. Go ahead. Y'all have the Vote Vet ad, folks? Okay, let's go ahead and roll it.
Here's the fact. Robinson's Trump's guy.
He's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
Robinson writing, quote, "I am a black Nazi."
Mark Robinson, he's out there, he's fighting. He's a great one. He's a good man.
Robinson defended slavery, writing, quote, "Slavery is not that bad. I wish they would bring slavery back. I would certainly own a few."
One of the strongest and bravest new voices in the Republican Party. He's been a great supporter of mine, and I'm a great supporter of his. Your incredible Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
That Robinson used slurs on the website. We found that he often used anti-gay slurs, he used an anti-Jewish slur, he used an anti-Muslim slur.
Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of North Carolina. What a job you're doing.
He enjoys, quote, watching transgender porn, saying, quote, "That's effing hot. It takes the man out while leaving the man in," and then adding, quote, "I'm a perv too."
Keep in mind that he has called transgender kids sick and demonic.
You're a very popular guy, Mark. And somebody that really took this country by storm, not just the state, but took the country by storm.
Now, Republicans against Donald Trump, they also have dropped their ad. Watch this.
Backed candidate for governor in North Carolina, Mark Robinson, has made dozens of disturbing and damning comments on a porn website. Here's the fact. Robinson's Trump's guy.
He's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
All right, guys, so we have, so that was the Republican voters against Donald Trump. They have been, of course, very highly critical of him. Now, the Kamala Harris campaign, they also, after all of the drama yesterday with Mark Robinson, they were very quick to go hard against Mark Robinson, against Donald Trump. And so you see them hitting hard as well. Folks, what you're seeing is you're seeing the Harris campaign not play games at all in terms of going after Donald Trump, tying him to Mark Robinson. Here is the Kamala Harris campaign ad right here.
And he's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
For me, there is no compromise on abortion.
I think you're better than Martin Luther King.
We could pass a bill saying you can't have an abortion in North Carolina for any reason.
Abortion in this country, it's about killing a child because you aren't responsible enough to keep your skirt down.
I've been with him a lot. I've gotten to know him, and he's outstanding.
Donald Trump and Mark Robinson. They're both wrong for North Carolina.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this.
Well, you see how they are not playing games as well. And so it's a very tight race there in North Carolina, and the polls show it. I told you about Vote Vets. This is the Vote Vets ad.
Kamala Harris.
Man, when Donald Trump runs scared, he really overdoes it. This time, his loyal henchmen in Congress, trying to stop veterans from being able to register to vote at the VA, using congressional subpoenas to attack the VA for helping veterans participate in the very democracy they put their lives on the line to defend. You can't make this stuff up. The draft dodger, making it harder for those who served to vote. Maybe he realizes that insulting us as suckers and losers, disparaging those who bear the wounds, refusing to salute the fallen, and trampling the graves of heroes for a TikTok photo op isn't the best way to win our support. Maybe he knows deep in his dark heart that we'll do again this November what we did in 2020. Beat Trump like a drum.
Michael, what you have there, you have Republicans against Trump. You got veterans as well. And North Carolina is shaping up to be a battleground state. Joe Biden lost North Carolina by 2.5 points in 2020. Then Senator Barack Obama won North Carolina in 2008, 14,100 votes, lost it in 2012. The Harris-Walz campaign is a serious shot at winning that. As one of the reasons why she's been in North Carolina several times. Walz was just in North Carolina this week as well. They see North Carolina as possibly falling to them, especially with Mark Robinson imploding in his gubernatorial race against Josh Stein.
Absolutely, and yesterday was the deadline for Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson to drop out of the race, and many soldiers said that he was going to stay in, and he's defiant, and that's good for many soldier. We know that the Carolina Journal reported that earlier this week, leaders in the Trump campaign privately told Robinson that he was not welcome at rallies for Trump or vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance. And what this could definitely do is drive up turnout, not just for Vice President Kamala Harris, but down ballot races, and drive down turnout for Republicans with Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. And the other thing that's really pernicious about this is that this is another example of these type of black Republicans, especially black male Republicans, that Donald Trump likes to surround himself with, self-deprecating, those that speak negatively about African Americans, speak negatively about the civil rights movement, Dr. King, but at the same time, they derive pleasure from seeing women sexually exploited, but they also want to control women's bodies by banning abortion and attack women's reproductive rights as well. So these ads are spot on, and it shows you once again why elections have consequences and why this 2024 election is probably the most consequential election since 1876, which brought about the end of Reconstruction.
Well, again, what you're seeing is folks zeroing in on him, and so you're going to see a lot more of these attack ads as we move forward. All right, folks, let's talk about this story out of Georgia, where you have the decision by a special prosecutor not to prosecute the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, saying that, well, you know what, doesn't apply to him. Attorney Wayne Kendall joins us right now. Attorney Kendall, glad to have you here. So they're letting a lieutenant governor off the hook in Georgia, huh?
Well, Roland, he's not completely off the hook yet. What happened recently last Friday was that the prosecutor who appointed himself after Fonnie Willis got disqualified decided that he was not going to prosecute the Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. But we have a case in court that's still pending that says that he is disqualified from even making that decision because he has a conflict of interest, actual financial conflict of interest involving the fact that the Lieutenant Governor, as the president of the Georgia Senate, is the only person that can move a bill to the floor of the Senate to pass the budget for his agency, which includes his salary. So he is directly financially dependent upon the Lieutenant Governor to approve his budget every year, and we're saying that that disqualifies him from being the prosecutor or investigating the Lieutenant Governor because the Lieutenant Governor is, in essence, his paymaster.
So how many other folks, I mean, is the special prosecutor, how many folks has he indicted?
Well, Pete Scandalakis is the person we're talking about. Pete has a history of non-prosecutions of governmental officials who get in trouble. He was the special prosecutor on the Rayshard Brooks case. If you remember that case was where this individual was asleep in a car in a drive-through, and he was awakened by the police. He got in a scuffle with the police, grabbed one of the policeman's taser. He was running away and got shot in the back. There's other cases. There's at least 3 or 4 other cases in Georgia where this particular prosecutor has non-prosecuted people who have shot other folks. For example, there was a sheriff's deputy that shot an individual in the courthouse because he wouldn't stop using his laptop in the courtroom. There was a scuffle in the hallway of the courthouse, and the deputy shot the individual. He was indicted. The sheriff deputy was indicted, and Pete Scandalakis dismissed the case. There are other cases similarly. So we knew that when he got appointed, or he appointed himself, that it was unlikely that he would indict the Lieutenant Governor because of the financial conflicts of interest. And he didn't have to appoint himself. He could have appointed probably over 1,000 other people. The statute allows him to appoint retired judges, retired prosecutors, federal and state. He could have appointed any number of private attorneys. But he didn't appoint anyone until after we sued him. And at that point, he appointed himself. And prior to him appointing himself, after he had been sitting on the case for 17, 18 months, we sent him an open records request and said, hey, tell us who all you have contacted. What lawyers, judges, retired, active have you contacted to take on this case? And this is 18 months after he was appointed to appoint someone after Fonnie Willis got disqualified. And he responded to our request to say that he had no written records whatsoever of actually attempting to contact any prosecutors to prosecute this case. And then one district attorney over in Augusta volunteered to take the case, but he wouldn't hire him either. So it was a pure and simple whitewash situation, but it's not over yet.
So what's next?
Well, what's next is that we're waiting on the judge in this case to determine whether or not he should be disqualified. And we had a hearing to determine a motion to dismiss our case last Monday, a week ago, this past Monday. And the judge has not ruled on that case yet. If he rules in our favor on that case, then we will go have a hearing on the merits and determine whether or not he is in fact disqualified because of his financial connections to the appropriation process that the Lieutenant Governor controls.
All right. Well, let us know how the legal battle continues. We appreciate it.
We will do. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks a bunch. All right, folks. Got to go to break. We come back. We'll talk about last night's huge virtual rally led by Oprah Winfrey for Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll talk about how much money they raised, and I'll also show you some of what took place last night. Folks, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Now, let me explain this here, y'all. So here's what's going on with Cash App. Nope, we can't show those. Here's what's going on with Cash App. So Cash App has changed their rules. And so if you have a certain type of corporation, you can't use Cash App. So we are an S Corp, all right? My accountant said this is really the best thing for us. Well, here's the problem. Cash App is no longer allowing S Corps to be able to utilize Cash App. So they're closing all of our Cash App accounts. Now, they've explained to us that they have a Cash App option that you can use with Square. Only problem is it don't work the way it's supposed to work. So right now, until further notice, you cannot support us on Cash App. Well, our Cash App $RM Unfiltered is still alive. But the bottom line is that's being closed, okay? So to support us right now, the options, okay? Can't use Cash App for now. We're trying to get it sorted out. This is a huge mess, y'all. It's screwing with us big time, but it is what it is. Check your money orders. Go P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal is paypal.me/R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered, and Zelle. Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
He told us who he was.
Should abortion be punished?
There has to be some form of punishment.
Then he showed us.
For 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it. And I'm proud to have done it.
Now Donald Trump wants to go further with plans to restrict birth control, ban abortion nationwide, even monitor women's pregnancies. We know who Donald Trump is. He'll take control. We'll pay the price.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. It should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is a danger to our troops and our democracy. We can't let him lead our country again.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
IVF is a miracle for us because it allowed us to have our family. After having my daughter, I wanted more children, but my embryo transfer was canceled 8 days before the procedure. Donald Trump overturning Roe v. Wade stopped us from growing the family that we wanted. I don't want politicians telling me how or when I can have a baby. We need a president that will protect our rights, and that's Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems.
Oh, she had a big crowd. Oh, the crowd.
This weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. America's ready for a new chapter. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
The overturning of Roe almost killed me. I had a blood clot in my uterus that caused my labor to have to be induced because of the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I wasn't able to get life-saving treatment sooner. I almost died. And that's because of the decision that Donald Trump made.
I was able to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I'm proud to have done it.
The doctors and nurses were afraid that if they treated me in the incorrect way, that they would be prosecuted for that. And that's appalling. Donald Trump says that women should be punished.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
I believe that women should have reproductive freedom to make the choices about their own bodies. 4 more years of Donald Trump means that women's rights will continue to be taken away one by one by one by one. This has to stop because women are dying.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
This is Reggie Rock Byford. You're watching Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
So remember I told you when the Teamsters made their decision not to endorse because of this so-called straw poll showing 59% of their voters wanted Trump and only 34% wanted Vice President Kamala Harris. And then all of a sudden you had Teamsters in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Nevada and California and all around the country supporting Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, guess what? The Teamsters General President Emeritus, Jim Hoffa, released his own statement, and he is not happy. Quote, this week, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Union made a choice to not endorse a candidate in the presidential race between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. This is a critical error and, frankly, a failure of leadership by Sean O'Brien. This election is too important for our union to not do its duty. We must take a stand for working Americans. There's only one candidate in this race that has supported working families and unions throughout their career, and that is Vice President Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has demonstrated an unwavering dedication to the principles that matter most to working families. Her advocacy for fair wages, workplace safety, and comprehensive labor reforms aligns with the core values of the labor movement. In my 23 years as General President of the Teamsters Union, I oversaw the endorsement process through 6 presidential races. In every case, we supported the candidate that demonstrated a proven track record of fighting for working Americans and unions. One of the greatest assets our union brings in the political arena is our ability to mobilize our membership and put boots on the ground to support pro-labor candidates. By the IBT choosing to not endorse Harris-Walz, the invaluable impact those grassroots efforts represent will be absent in critical battleground states. The simple fact is that by not endorsing the Harris-Walz ticket, the clear and correct choice for labor and working families, Sean O'Brien has undermined their campaign. With 48 days left until the election, the Teamsters Union had a chance to have a positive effect on the outcome of this election. Every major union has endorsed the Harris-Walz ticket. But instead of standing in solidarity with all of labor and helping Harris-Walz get over the finish line, the IBT has chosen to take a seat on the sidelines. And folks, that is a powerful letter. Now keep in mind, the Teamsters, they had endorsed President Barack Obama. But see, what you have is you have these white men in the Teamsters who feel differently about Donald Trump. They like Donald Trump. They gravitate to him. But guess what? He's anti-union. He doesn't give a damn about them. It was Vice President Kamala Harris that cast the tie vote, that broke the tie, and provided billions to save pensions, including 600,000 Teamsters. You would think the folks who had their asses saved when it came to their pension would remember the person who actually did it. We also remember when Donald Trump was on with Elon Musk and he talked about, hey, fire workers who were striking. I'm sorry, do pension people not remember that? Do Teamsters people not remember that? See, folks, this is a perfect example of people who vote against their own economic interests, So they're supportive of Donald Trump. Oh, because they like him and love his tough talk. Donald Trump is anti-labor. Donald Trump is anti-working class. And I remember I responded to this stupid tweet. Because if you want to know one of just the dumbest people out here, it's Megyn Kelly. It's Megyn Kelly. She's pretty dumb. She's dumb in that this is the same Megyn Kelly. If y'all want to see stupidity, I mean, this to me, I'm going to go to in a second. So if you want to understand stupidity and how the mind of these white conservatives work is what Megyn Kelly actually tweeted. So last night she was whining and complaining about the Oprah Kamala Harris rally. And see, this is in line with the Teamsters. Here is utterly clueless Megyn Kelly. Amazed, they think this Oprah thing is going to appeal to independents. A bunch of super rich Hollywood celebs endorsing Harris, absolutely none of whom understands anything about the working class's suffering. emceed by one of the richest women on earth whose act has grown very stale. I'm sorry, is this the same woman who got a $69 million buyout from NBC because her show sucked and they fired her? $20 million from Fox? Interesting that you want to talk about somebody being rich. Megyn Kelly, you don't know jack about the working class. You prove that every single day. Donald Trump despises unions. Donald Trump has stiffed small business owners, people who did the work at his casinos, but he said, I don't have to pay y'all. And then told them, fine, sue me. Then sued them back. But I need y'all to understand how whiteness operates. The Teamsters decision, and you see Hoffa criticizing it, and this nonsense from Megyn Kelly is a perfect example of how whiteness works. And how they don't understand the working class. Who save their pensions? Who has been called? Union people have said this administration is the most pro-union administration in decades. So how is it they don't understand the working class? Matt?
I don't know. I wish I had something astute to say. I mean, what I think you see that being is part and parcel with what Republicans are doing a lot, which is selling policy that is inconsistent with reality. I mean, it's like when you hear people in Texas, when you hear Governor Abbott say that he doesn't want to accept certain Medicaid funds or, federal funds. We're not going to accept federal funds when some large percentage of Texans need those and continue to vote Republican because they buy the abortion sound bites, or they buy certain sound bites that make them vote Republican, despite the fact that the Republican Party is promulgating policy that's directly counter to their interest. That's because, to your point about whiteness, a lot of times whiteness in particular is what is leveraged to galvanize people whose actual political interests are different than what the Republican Party is selling. That's what you see. So, that's one thing you hear often when I feel like, frankly, it's conservative white people who feel like they don't have anything else to attack a person for. Then they try to flip it on its head and make them some kind of, oligarch. And there's a good argument that a lot of our government is oligarchy rather than democracy anyway. But it's just kind of the pot calling the kettle black, especially when you're already rich. So this is all rhetoric and this is sound bites. And these kinds of things are used to galvanize a base of people, unfortunately, who are not discerning enough to realize that the policies that this party is promulgating are not policies that benefit them.
And it's laughable, Michael. It's laughable as you listen to these folks complain about, not understanding working class people. They do. They understand them. But the right-wingers, they have lied to people and convinced them that, no, we have your best interests at heart. No, you have the best interests You have the best interest of the bosses. You have the best interest of the companies. That's who you have. That's what you're talking about. In fact, this is one of the workers speaking right now in Madison, Wisconsin, at the Vice President Kamala Harris rally. Let's go live there.
Kamala Harris to be our next president of the United States. We are standing with over 1 million other Teamsters and retirees who have endorsed Kamala Harris because she spent her career fighting for working families, and as vice president in the most pro-union administration in history, she worked with the Teamsters and other unions and our own U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin to pass the historic Butch-Lewis Act, which saved the pensions of over 1 million retirees to date. Vice President Harris has created millions of good-paying jobs through the administration's historic investments in infrastructure and bringing manufacturing back to the United States, and she knows there's more work to do. That's why, as our next president, Kamala Harris will work with Congress to pass the PRO Act, protecting workers and ending some of the most egregious union.
All right, folks, having an issue there. We're going to go back live to that rally in Wisconsin. So let me go ahead and get that all queued up for you there. And you see what the campaign is doing. They're very quickly pivoting to these workers, showing you exactly, showing you what they're doing. Okay, let's actually go. All right, guys, y'all got it? Let's go.
Workers. Trump's Project 2025 agenda would go even further, attacking the abilities for unions to organize. The bottom line, Trump is a scab. That's right. That's why this November, the Teamsters here in Wisconsin will work hard, hand in hand with millions of union workers across the country to defeat Donald Trump and send Vice President Harris and Governor Walz to the White House. And now, I am incredibly honored to introduce a lifelong champion for workers. Please welcome our next President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Madison cred, right? Oh, thank you all. It really is great to be back. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. And can we please thank Bill for fighting every day for the working people of America? Council 39, I am so honored and grateful for your endorsement. I will work so closely with you as we always have, and we will win. And we will win. And we will win. And it's so great to be with all of the leaders who are here. This is an auditorium full of leaders, including our dear friend and your governor, Tony Evers. Senator Tammy Baldwin, who you will re-elect to the United States Senate. Representative Pocan. Mayor Rhodes Conway. And I have to give a special thanks to the mayor because the last time I was in Madison, we went to the house where I lived when I was 5 years old, here in Madison. So many of you know, and my sister Maya's here, so our parents taught at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and so we lived here for a period of time. So every time I land, the governor says, "Welcome home." So thank you all to all the leaders who are here, elected leaders and community leaders and just neighborhood leaders, family leaders, all that you are. Thank you. So here we are. All right, we got work to do. 46 days until the election. 46 days until the election. And what we know, this is going to be a tight race until the very end. So let's not pay too much attention to the polls, because let's be clear, we are the underdog in this race, and we have some hard work ahead of us. But here's the thing, we like hard work. We like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is joyful work. And with your help in November, we will win. We will win. So, some of you might have seen the debate last week that I had with Donald Trump. It was fun. And I talked about issues that matter to families across America, like bringing down the cost of living, investing in America's small businesses, protecting reproductive freedom, and keeping our nation safe and secure. But that is not what we heard from Donald Trump. Instead, it was the same old tired show. The same old tired playbook we've heard for years, with no plan on how he would address the needs of the American people. Well, folks, it's time to turn the page. Time to turn the page. And America is ready to chart a new way forward. We are ready. We are ready. We are ready for a new generation of leadership that is optimistic about what we can do together. Because we're tired of all that division and hate they're pushing. We here know the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And that's what our campaign is about. Understanding that this is a people-powered campaign, that this is a campaign about building community, building coalitions, reminding us all that we are all in this together and that we're gonna be good and all right. We're in this together. Which is why Democrats Democrats, Republicans, and independents are supporting our campaign because they want a president, we want a president who works for all the American people, and I promise you that is the kind of president I will be. I promise that. Now, many of you know my background. My entire career, I have fought for the people. As a young courtroom prosecutor in Oakland, I stood up for women and children against predators who abuse them. As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks and delivered $20 billion for middle-class families who faced foreclosure because of predatory lending practices. I stood up for veterans and students who were being scammed by the big for-profit colleges, and for workers who were being cheated out of the wages they were due, and for seniors facing elder abuse. And as president, I will fight on behalf of all communities and all Americans, and together we will build a brighter future for our nation. Together, we will build a future where we build what I call an opportunity economy, so every American has the opportunity to own a home, to build wealth, to start a small business. And I'll tell you, I love our small businesses. For the small business leaders who are here, can you raise your hand? Our small business leaders are extraordinary. So, you know, growing up, before our mother could afford to buy a house, we lived in an apartment above a child care center. It was owned by a woman by the name of Mrs. Shelton, and she helped raise my sister Maya and me, because my mother worked long days and sometimes on weekends. We called Miss Shelton our second mother, and she was a small business owner. So from childhood, I have known the character and work ethic of our small business owners. And I know small business owners are the backbone of America's economy. Which is why my plan offers a new way forward and will give a $50,000 tax deduction to help entrepreneurs start their small businesses. I also know we need to build more housing in America. You know, my mother saved up for years, and when I was a teenager, she was finally able to buy her first home. I know what that dream is like. I know what it is like for people to work hard and to save up and have a dream that is about the dignity of their work and an investment in their future, the future of their family, an investment in the pride they so rightly deserve because of their hard work. But right now on the affordable housing issue, look, we have a shortage of housing in America, and it's contributing to driving up prices. So with my plan, we are going to cut red tape and work with the private sector to build 3 million new homes by the end of my first term. And provide first-time home buyers with $25,000 in down payment assistance so they can just get their foot in the door. Because unlike my opponent, who was basically handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, most people need to just have the opportunity to actually get their foot in the door to achieve their dream and their aspirations. We also need to lower the cost of living, because while our economy is doing well by many measures, prices for everyday necessities like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it. I plan to lower costs on everything ranging from healthcare to groceries, including taking on corporate price gouging. And my plan includes giving a tax cut to 100 million Americans, including $6,000, by expanding the child tax credit for the first year of a child's life to help young and new parents buy a car seat, a crib, baby clothes, in that most significant phase of their development. And all of this is to say, I will always put the middle class and working families first. I come from the middle class, and I have never forgotten where I come from. And I never will. And I never will. Now, Donald Trump, well, he has a different plan. And in many ways, you've heard me say before, he is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting him back in the White House are extremely serious. Extremely serious. Just Google Project 2025. By the way, can you believe they put that thing in writing? I mean, they put it in writing, they had it bound, and they handed it out. It bound. But if you look at what he's up to, Donald Trump will give billionaires and big corporations massive tax cuts. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. And he wants to impose what I call a Trump sales tax, because here's the thing. What he is proposing would be a 20% tax on everyday necessities, basic necessities, which economists estimate will cost most working families more than $4,000 a year extra. Think about that. And on top of all of that, he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. Remember, he tried 60 times when he was president. In fact, together with Tammy, I was a United States Senator. On the floor, I don't know where she is right now, but she'll remember, and we've talked about this. We were on the floor of the United States Senate in the middle of the night when one of those votes was up, when they were trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And we were all standing around after we all voted to protect the Affordable Care Act. And we were all standing around. And then the big wooden doors to the Senate well opened. And in walked the late, great John McCain. Remember that? And he said, no, you don't. He said, no, you don't. Remember that? But we were up against those kinds of attacks when he was president last time, and as he said in the debate, he intends to replace it, but has no plan. In fact, he has, quote, concepts of a plan. No actual plan, concepts. So, aside from that being laughable, it's very serious, because he's basically saying he would threaten the health insurance of 45 million people in our country based on a concept. and take us back. Remember those days when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions? Remember what that was like? Well, brother, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We will not go back. We're not going back. No, we are not. We will move forward. And just like Wisconsin's state motto tells us, forward is where we go. Forward is where we go. Because ours is a fight for the future. And ours is a fight for freedom. Like the fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government telling her what to do. Freedom. And we remember how we got here. Donald Trump handpicked 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in more than 20 states, we have Trump abortion bans, many with no exceptions even for rape and incest. It is immoral. It is immoral. And let us agree, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do. Not the government. Not the government. And yet, in our debate, Donald Trump said that everyone wanted to overturn Roe. I have talked with folks who are here. I have talked with women around our country and the people who love them. Women are being denied care during miscarriages. Some only being treated once they develop sepsis. They didn't want this. And we know that women have died because of Trump abortion bans. I was with a mother and the 2 sisters of a woman who died because of Trump abortion bans just last night. You know, and her mother said the worst thing among the pain that she is experiencing is when she heard and reflects on what she was told, that it was preventable. Preventable. And you know, when that decision came down just over 2 years ago, we predicted this would happen. And it's preventable. You know, the young woman, she was a vibrant 28-year-old young woman with a mother of a 6-year-old son. Her name, Amber Nicole Thurman, who I promised her mother I will say her name every time. I will say her name every time. And so Amber was a medical assistant. She had just learned that she was accepted to nursing school. She had her whole future planned out. And her sisters and her mother were describing her to me, and they said, you know, she had such light, and she had ambition, and she had drive, and she was so proud that she had worked so hard, and she was finally gaining independence, that she found an apartment in a safe community. It had a little pool where her son could play, and she was so proud. She was so proud and so hopeful. And then she discovered she was pregnant, and she decided to have an abortion. But because of the Trump abortion ban in Georgia, She was forced to travel out of state to receive the health care that she needed. And when she returned to Georgia, she needed additional care, so she went to a hospital in Georgia. But under the Trump abortion ban, her doctors could have faced up to a decade in prison for providing Amber the care she needed. And so she waited for 20 excruciating hours. She waited as she deteriorated. And then she reached such a critical state that the doctors finally operated, and it was too late. And she died of sepsis. And recently, medical experts determined that Amber's death was preventable. So understand what a law like this means, what these kinds of laws mean. These kinds of laws under Trump abortion bans. It means doctors may have to wait until the patient is at death's door before they take any action. Nobody wants that. What is he talking about? Nobody wants that. Are we saying we're going to craft down public health policy so that doctors only kick in when you're about to die? This is one example of what is happening around our country right now. And this is a healthcare crisis, and Donald Trump is the architect. So I will say to you, because of why we are here, we're going to get Tammy reelected to the United States Senate. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly. And across our nation, we are witnessing a full-on assault on other hard-fought, hard-won fundamental rights and freedoms, like the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to join a union, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. So we know what we are up against. We are clear-eyed about what we are up against. And we remember that generations of Americans before us led the fight for freedom. And now, the baton is in our hands. Now, it's in our hands. It's in our hands. And so much is on the line in this election. And this is not 2016 or 2020. The stakes are even higher. Because remember, 2 months ago, the United States Supreme Court basically told the former president that he will effectively be immune no matter what he does in the White House. But think about that. Think about what that means. So before, at least, there was some threat of consequence. And now the court has made this decision. Think about that. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. He who has vowed to be a dictator on day one. He who has called for, quote, the termination of the Constitution of the United States of America. And let us be very clear. Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again. Never again. So, Wisconsin, it all comes down to this. We are here together because we love our country. We love our country. And we understand the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth, the privilege and pride of being an American. The privilege and pride of being an American. And I do believe that it is one of the highest forms of patriotism to fight for the ideals of our country and to fight to realize the promise of America. So, Madison, Election Day, yes, in 46 days, and early voting has already started in some states. Early voting in Wisconsin starts in just 32 days. And in fact, many of you may have already received your mail-in ballots. Check this out. In-person early voting begins in Virginia and Minnesota today. Today. And don't we love Tim Walz? He's so good. He's so good. So all that to say, the election is basically here. It's basically here, and we have work to do. To energize, to organize, and to mobilize, and to remind everyone, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power, and never let anyone take your power from you. So, Madison, today I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard?
Folks, massive crowd there for Vice President Kamala Harris in Madison, Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a critical state. When you look at polling data right now, it shows that she's up anywhere from 1 to 2 points there in Wisconsin. And again, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, critical states for the campaign. Of course, they also are looking at Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia. I'm going to go to my panel here. It's very interesting here, Matt and Michael, because you know, you got your mainstream media who's constantly complaining about the lack of media interviews. And so I was watching a video a little bit earlier, and it was Jake Tapper was questioning Keisha Lance Bottoms, and he was sitting here going, well, you know, why is she not doing more interviews, talking about policy, talking about you know, taking these media questions, and Lance Bottoms said, well, she's been kind of busy. She talked about the rallies and things along those lines. And again, she's doing exactly what you know, she should be doing. I'm gonna go ahead and play this for y'all. I know you're gonna get a kick out of this, so just watch this here.
She's not sitting down for regular interviews or fielding questions from the press, certainly not to the degree that her counterpart Donald Trump is. Why? Why is she not doing more interviews to talk about her policies and answer some of the questions that voters have about her policies and on her change on her views in some of them?
Well, Jake, she's done interviews, and I know that we would love, or you would love, to see her sit down every single day with CNN and do interviews, but she's a very busy person.
Now, she's a very busy person, but here's the whole deal. She's been doing interviews, Michael. She's been talking Latino media, Ricky Smiley, talking to local anchors there in Pennsylvania. What these mainstream people are upset with is that she's not sitting down talking to CNN, talking to MSNBC. She's going directly to voters, and she's doing non-traditional interviews. That's what she's doing. They're just upset that she's not sitting down with them.
Upset that she's not sitting down with them. Now, she did do an interview on CNN with Dana Bash, and most of the questions that Dana Bash asked were right-wing conservative talking points put into the form of a question. What happened last night, I watched it last night. It was in Farmington Hills, Michigan. This was a fantastic virtual town hall meeting, and they took questions from voters. And what the problem here with mainstream media, keep in mind, we've talked about here on a number of times over the past 3 years, those hit pieces that the Washington Post, New York Times, other mainstream media had attacking Vice President Kamala Harris. And then they would do a 15-minute BS segment on CNN or MSNBC about those hit pieces. Okay, so now that she is so hot, right? Now they want sit-down interviews with the same person that you've been criticizing and dogging for the past 3 years. So she's circumnavigating the BS with mainstream media and going to Oprah, going to Ricky Smiley, going to African-American talk show hosts, also people like daytime talk show hosts. I think she was on either Jennifer Hudson or one of those shows, things like that. She's doing that type of media, okay? So she needs to keep doing that. She doesn't need to do I don't think she needs to do a lot of that mainstream media interviews. What happened last night with Oprah, they need more of that. That will garner more views and more interest than the mainstream media interviews like with Dana Bash on CNN.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting here, Matt. Look, I get it. We're still waiting for an interview with her. They've been promised that we're going to get one, and the bottom line is, she doesn't have to go to them. And see, they want to be the gatekeepers here. They want to be able to control the information flow. We're now living in a different world. Here's a perfect example. Last night, okay, at its peak, there were 297,000 people who were on Kamala Harris's YouTube channel, okay? Oprah's YouTube channel had 100,000. There were about 20,000 that were on their Instagram pages. We had 10,000 watching on our page. Now, Facebook, I think Twitter had about 200-some-odd thousand. Facebook suppresses video content, news content, and definitely black news content. Oprah has 21 million followers on her Facebook page. There were only 1,700 people watching live on Facebook. Vice President Kamala Harris, her page, I think about 5.4 million, I think. They had about 4,700 people who were watching. We have 1.3 million on Facebook, only 230 watching. So Facebook is purposely suppressing content. The reality is they can go directly to the people. They don't have to sit down and talk to mainstream media. And the New York Times is still pissed they haven't gotten a one-on-one interview with President Joe Biden during his presidency. And so their deal is, you keep crapping on us, we ain't got to talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, I often agree with Michael on this show, but I think he hit the nail on the head in talking about, the reticence I would have if I were on her team and if I were her to do mainstream media interviews after you've been, doing everything you can to knock me down since I've been the vice president, right? So it's a supply and demand thing. The demand is overwhelmingly high. Everybody wants to hear from you, so you control who you talk to. And not only do you control who you talk to, you control how you talk to them, the narrative, right? The stump speech and the points that you're delivering every time that you speak. So, if she had an issue getting coverage to voters, then it would make sense for her to go on mainstream media and capitulate to Jake Tapper and whomever else thinks they get to control how her campaign gets its narrative out. But she didn't have to do that because the entire world wants to hear from her right now, so she can control who she talks to. And especially at this point when you have, as her own campaign manager has termed it, a quote, margin of error race, I think they have to be strategic in what they say, when they say it, and how they say it, especially because Mr. Walz, to much of his credit, has unfortunately had to put his foot in his mouth many times over the years. And I think they're trying to control any potential damage that could come from situations where they're not completely in control. So I don't think they have any duty to do that, nor do I think they have a need, because the demand is so high, they control the supply.
Not only that, when your strategy is working, it's working. Last night, go ahead and play the video. This was last night. Thousands, again, hundreds of thousands were watching. Go ahead and roll it. Go ahead and roll it, guys. So they had about 400 audience members last night. You had about 1,000 people on video monitors. And again, you had hundreds of thousands of watching. If I go to YouTube right now and I click live to see how many people last night, when I click, let me see, hold up, let me go right over here. Give me 1 second. If I click live, last night's event, they restreamed it, but you see right here, 1.5 million. Guys, go to my iPad. You see right here, 1.5 million views that's just on her page. I checked Oprah's page, I think it was 351,000. So right there, you almost at 2 million. Just for the point here, for the people who are at home watching, let me show y'all this here. Y'all gonna get a kick out. Y'all gonna get a kick out of this. 1 second. So let me just go here. I'm gonna pull this up because most of y'all don't pay any attention to this. Well, I do. And let's see here, right there, boom. Ratings, Friday. So here's a perfect event. These are the Friday ratings. I want everybody to understand something here. These are this is Friday's ratings. I go to my iPad. In the 4 o'clock hour, you had in the 25-50. This is the 25. You know what? I'm going to do total. That's 25-54. Okay. So Neil Cavuto, 1.44 million. Jake Tapper, 708,000. Nicole Wallace, 1.7 million. Then when you go to the 5 p.m. hour, the 5 on Fox had 3.2 million. Will Blitzer had 764,000. Nicole Wallace, they didn't have her ratings. 6 p.m., Brett Baer, 2.3 million. Wolf Blitzer, 750,000. Ari Melber, 1.86 million. Laura Ingraham at 7 o'clock, 2 million. Aaron Burnett, 781,000. Joanne Reed, 1.4 million. Jesse Waters, 2.8 million at 8 o'clock. Anderson Cooper, 854,000. Chris Hayes, 1.5. Guess what, y'all? Oprah Winfrey and Kamala Harris's YouTube channel combined was also 2 million. In order to get 2 million, go back to my iPad. In order for CNN to get 2 million, you got to watch Jake Tapper's show, Will Blitzer's show, and Aaron Burnett's show. Guess what? They don't need to go on CNN. CNN gives them nothing. CNN's ratings are in the trash. Why go on? Your ratings suck. So it's a smart strategy. No, the ratings suck.
Right.
The numbers, I need everybody, these are the numbers, y'all. These are the Nielsen ratings right here. Go back. These are the numbers. This is the total audience right here. So I'm sorry, Jake and the folks at CNN, they don't have to talk to y'all because ain't nobody watching y'all. They can talk to more people online or in some podcast than who watch CNN. That's just a fact, Michael.
Absolutely. The cheese has moved, so this is a new day. And, one of the things that just to take this back just a few months ago when all the frenzy was the interview that Shannon Sharp did with Cat Williams. What was so brilliant about that is that Shannon Sharp gets 50 million views on YouTube, or if I remember correctly, 50 million views on YouTube, and it impacted the conversation all throughout social media, and the interview did not appear in mainstream media. This is a new day when we have more control over content and reaching the end user,
well, in fact,
bypass mainstream media.
Well, in fact, the interview did 75 million.
Well, I know at one point,
so, no, I'm just saying,
I heard the announcement when it broke 50 million.
Yeah, right, but I'm saying on the page right now, go to my iPad.
Yes.
It's right here. It did 75 million. And in fact, again, I'm just going to pull up, because I was looking at this the other day. So you take, to your point, so he's a perfect example. Shannon did an interview. He's done an interview with Ronnie Coleman.
Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, Mr. Olympia.
Ronnie Coleman.
Now her 16,000 views in 2 days. If you go to Marlon Wayans, now they got all these different clips, but the Marlon Wayans interview, 6.9 million. 6.9 million. Y'all, let me say this again. This is no lie. And again, I'm not trying to sit here. So the Marlon's Wayans interview has generated 6.9 million views in 2 weeks. Do y'all know how long it would literally take Jake Tapper's show about a real damn long time to get the 7 million views collected? Matt, numbers are numbers. If you're the head from a political standpoint, I'm not speaking from a media standpoint. From a political standpoint, if I'm them, I'm not changing my strategy at all. It's working.
Yeah, and not only is it about ratings, because you're exactly right on the numbers, but it's about risk. Why would you change your strategy and then put yourself in a circumstance where you don't control 100% the narrative? And here's the thing, back in the day before social media, the only channels by which you could get things out, at least on a mass scale, would be mainstream media. So if you refuse to talk to CBS or Cronkite, whoever 40 years ago, that could have a measurable effect on how much your message gets out. That you're showing, I think, perfectly right now, that is no longer the case. You don't need mainstream media really at all. And what's interesting about that is, they try to characterize it as though she has some duty to go to them as a means to get information to the voters, but she can do that without them. So really, I think you're right. I wouldn't change the strategy at all, and I would continue controlling the narrative such that we get the points out in the way that we want them out, in the framing that we want them out, rather than having to be responsive to someone who may intend to do a hatchet job. We know they have done hatchet jobs on her in the past. You've covered them on your show. So I don't know why her team would ever do that, especially when you have such a tight race. If she were 20 points ahead in the polls, maybe she takes that risk. But right now, her framing has to be perfect. She's got to be speaking to the people in the battleground states. She's got to be speaking to libertarians. She has to be framing things in the way they think turns into votes for that very small sliver of people who are still on the fence. And I think her team would be doing itself a disservice if they did not control as much as possible the flow of information and to whom they give that information.
Also, Michael, let's be real clear. I think it's BS for media folks to keep saying, oh, we need to be talking to her about policy. She literally talks about policy in her speeches. She's laying out policy. She's unveiled proposals. So that's just crap. You said it best. The Dana Bash interview, most of it was, Trump says this, how do you respond? That's all it was. And so I'm like, why am I going to sit here and listen to that? It's just, again, I understand it. I want to sit down with her. I have some questions. But again, if I'm in her political shoes, I am executing the strategy that has got me to where I am, and they've actually been executing a rather flawless plan.
Absolutely. Rather flawless plan. And I'm still waiting on Donald Trump to do his press conference with the media dealing with foreign policy and answer intricate, detailed questions about foreign policy like Joe Biden did at NATO. I'm still waiting on that from Donald Trump. But yeah, the Harris-Walz campaign needs to keep doing what they're doing. And they're taking questions like that virtual town hall last night. They're taking questions from real voters, from real people about their concerns. A lot of these questions, and remember, Joe Biden did Lester Holt He did an interview with Lester Holt, NBC Nightly News, and George Stephanopoulos. I'm still waiting on Donald Trump to do CBS, NBC, ABC. He's not going to be George Stephanopoulos because of the defamation lawsuit, but somebody else on ABC News. I'm still waiting for that sit-down interview. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. So, yeah, they need to continue, but hopefully we get the interview soon, Roland Martin Unfiltered as well. That's going to be excellent. But this is fantastic what they're doing, and this shows how it puts the power, puts a lot of power in the hands of people to be able to get this on social media. So many people are cutting the cord when it comes to cable TV and don't have cable TV, and they're getting all their information on YouTube, social media, apps, things like this. So they can get this type of information. And yes, she is discussing policy, and she has her policies laid out at KamalaHarris.com as well, at her website. So all these people saying, well, she doesn't have policies, she doesn't have policies. You can go to her website and read her policies, and then compare that to Agenda 47 from Donald Trump.
Here's the deal, though. Okay, I'm not even. Okay, and here's the thing. 2016, how many policies did Hillary Clinton lay out? She laid out tons of policies.
36.
That's not what was happening. At the end of the day, again, I know what media is doing. I get it. But frankly, if I'm them, I'm simply saying she's doing interviews. She's just not sitting down with y'all. That's what the deal is. Here's a little bit more of what was said last night in the virtual voter rally between Oprah Winfrey and Vice President Kamala Harris. That's the rally, folks. I don't want the rally. I meant from last night.
Mr. CJ and Andrika are here, and they wanted to be here tonight to speak out for the first time. Ms. Jeanette, what do you want us to know about Amber's story?
Initially, I did not want the public to know my pain. I wanted to go through in silence, but I realized that it was selfish. I want y'all to know Amber was not a statistic. She was loved by a family, a strong family, and we would have done whatever to get my baby, our baby, the help that she needed. When ProPublica came to my home, I pushed them away. No, but Kavithia, she was persistent. She said, it was something that you needed to know. You have to hear me. Women around the world, people around the world need to know that this was prevented.
That, of course, is the black woman who died in Georgia. The vice president referenced her in Madison, Wisconsin, and Atlanta. That is a powerful story, and Republicans, it's got them on their heels, Michael.
Absolutely, and it should have them on their heels because they are responsible for this. They have blood on their hands, figuratively speaking, not literally. And Donald Trump took credit for overturning Roe versus Wade, and this is an example of how elections have consequences once again. There's 3 Supreme Court justices, and the other part to this is even though this is women's reproductive rights impact men as well. And what I mean is when you have a woman like Amber Thurman who dies, that impacts the men in the family also. So a lot of times this gets painted as just a women's issue. No, it's not. It impacts both sides of the family, the man's side of the family, the woman's side of the family. It impacts uncles, cousins, male cousins, things of this nature. So I think that there needs to be another voice added to this conversation, is amplify the men who are supporting women's reproductive rights and how deaths like this, in vitro fertilization, et cetera, impacts the men as well.
Matt, go ahead.
I mean, I didn't get a chance to watch the segment. I've watched it as much as you've been playing it here today. And you know what I was thinking about earlier during the rally that I'm really interested in seeing if anybody's done any polling on is libertarians and their response in this election. And maybe you've seen it, maybe you have numbers on it, but it really struck me that the refrain she was using about freedom, especially in the context of reproductive freedom, seems to me to be something that would really resonate pretty strongly with anybody who is a libertarian who identifies that way, or who is, I guess, freedom-minded beyond being a part of one of the two major parties, to the extent that, you know, that's the thing that has not made sense to me about this particular aspect of healthcare policy. I don't see how you can advocate for unbridled freedom, but then demand that the government controls people having freedom as it relates to their bodies, even if you don't agree with the decision to exercise the right to an abortion. I don't understand how you can be for freedom and against that being an option that people can take, even if you aren't one of those people. So I tell you that to say, I mean, I think speaking to that issue is important. However, I think they have an opportunity to really make some big points as it relates to overall health care. She kind of spoke to that a little bit in the rally, but I think that is something that resonates even larger than the abortion issue, because for a lot of people, I think the abortion issue is open and shut at this point. But I think most Americans across the political spectrums have concerns about health care costs, and I think there's a real opportunity for them to hit that harder.
Here's the whole deal. The issue is not folks' minds are made up when it comes to reproductive rights. This is now about driving turnout. That's why you still seeing them do it. So this is about a turnout conversation. Is that about changing somebody's mind, somebody's undecided? It's about actually driving the numbers out on the particular issues. Matt, Michael, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems.
Oh, she had a big crowd. Oh, the crowd.
This weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. America's ready for a new chapter. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is RMartin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.